Within these teachings, you'll uncover the dominance signal, the hidden frequency of command that has guided leaders, mystics, and creators across the ages. You will learn why certainty changes rooms and how the forbidden alpha frequency can shift circumstances before you speak a single word. If you're ready to step into true inner power, this audiobook will show you how. The dominance signal. You didn't arrive here by accident. Certain pages find certain souls. If this book found you, be sure to like and subscribe to this channel. I'm giving away a free physical copy of this book, packed with ancient wisdom and timeless insight. The details are in the pinned comment, so don't forget to check it out. Introduction. In the vast orchestra of existence, your energy field conducts the symphony of your life. This is not metaphysical poetry. It is the fundamental principle of field sovereignty, the cornerstone of personal power that shapes your reality with precision and grace. Your presence carries a frequency, a dominance signal that ripples through the fabric of your environment. But understand this: true dominance has nothing to do with force or manipulation. It is the quiet authority of absolute certainty, the unwavering clarity that comes from deep alignment with your own truth. Think of water. In its natural state, it shapes landscapes not through violence, but through consistent presence and clear intention. Your personal field operates in the same way. When you stand in complete alignment with your inner truth, the world bends, not because you demand it, but because your energy field becomes an immovable force of nature. The foundation of field sovereignty rests on 4 pillars: posture, breath, attention, and internal clarity. Your physical stance is not just about appearance. It is the antenna through which you broadcast your signal to the universe. Your breath is not merely a biological function. It is the rhythm that harmonizes your internal and external reality. Your attention is not just focus. It is the laser that cuts through chaos and creates order. Your internal clarity is not just decision-making. It is the bedrock of unshakable certainty. As you progress through this work, you will discover that certainty is not an emotional accident or a temporary state of confidence. It is a trainable condition, a muscle that strengthens with deliberate practice. Like a master martial artist who moves with effortless power, you will learn to cultivate a presence that commands respect without demanding it. Field sovereignty is your birthright. It is the natural state of a being who has remembered their true power. This journey ahead will strip away the layers of doubt and hesitation that have muted your signal, revealing the pure, powerful frequency that has always been your essence. Part 1. Awakening and Foundations. Chapter 1. The Forbidden Alpha. Henry Dalton sat hunched at his telegraph station, shoulders curved inward as the familiar clicks and clacks filled the dusty office. For 15 years, he had occupied this same corner, translating urgent messages while chaos swirled around him. The constant rush of messengers, the shouting of supervisors, and the general atmosphere of panic had become as normal as breathing. One morning, after reading a passage about presence, Henry made a simple change. He straightened his spine, dropped his shoulders back, and allowed his chest to open. This subtle shift sent ripples through the office. Within days, colleagues began pausing at his station instead of rushing past. The frantic energy that had defined their workplace for so long began to smooth into something more purposeful. Henry hadn't spoken a word about efficiency or changed any procedures. He had simply altered his field. This illustrates the alpha frequency, the natural resonance of unwavering certainty. Like a tuning fork that brings surrounding instruments into harmony, a person operating at the alpha frequency influences their environment without force. This frequency isn't achieved through dominance or control, but through internal alignment and clear intention. Clara June discovered this truth in the dementia ward where she worked. One evening, 2 elderly residents became increasingly agitated, their voices rising as confusion turned to anger. Other staff members rushed to intervene, but Clara took a different approach. She stood quietly at the edge of the room, breathing deeply and maintaining a calm, centered presence. Within minutes, the tension began to dissolve. The residents' voices softened, their agitation fading like mist in morning sun. Clara hadn't used techniques or clever words. She had simply maintained what we call field sovereignty, the natural authority that emerges when someone fully inhabits their own presence. This power doesn't push or pull, it simply is. These stories demonstrate how field sovereignty operates in the real world. Whether in a telegraph office or a care facility, the principle remains the same. Your internal field becomes the governing frequency of your environment. This isn't about controlling others. It's about maintaining such clear alignment with your own truth that discord naturally resolves in your presence. To begin cultivating your own field awareness, practice this 5-breath calibration ritual. Stand with your feet shoulder-width apart, spine straight, but not rigid. On the first breath, feel the ground beneath your feet. On the second, notice the space your body occupies. Third breath, sense the field extending an arm's length around you. Fourth breath, expand your awareness to fill the entire room. On the final breath, maintain this expanded awareness while bringing attention back to your center. This simple practice attunes you to your field's natural radius of influence. Through this awareness, you'll begin to recognize how your field interacts with others, how it shapes spaces, and how it can become an instrument of positive change in every environment you enter. Chapter 2: The Anatomy of Command. Edwin Morris carried his leather tuning case with the same measured grace whether entering a concert hall or a modest living room. His reputation wasn't built on technical skill alone, though his ear for pitch was legendary, but on the peculiar way spaces transformed in his presence. The moment he crossed a threshold, rooms seemed to settle into themselves, as though exhaling a breath they didn't know they were holding. At the Berkshire Symphony Hall, a heated argument between the conductor and first-chair violin fell silent as Edwin methodically unpacked his tools. He didn't shush them or even glance their way. His movements remained unhurried, each gesture precise and purposeful. The quarreling musicians found themselves drawn into the rhythm of his preparations, their dispute forgotten in the face of his quiet certainty. This exemplifies the 3 pillars of command: posture, voice, and attention. Posture isn't merely about standing straight. It's about inhabiting your body with full awareness. Voice carries authority not through volume but through resonance, the ability to speak from your center without effort or strain. Attention, perhaps the most powerful of the 3, is about maintaining unwavering presence in the present moment. Opal Hart discovered these principles by accident during her first year teaching high school chemistry. Her classroom had been chaos, students talking over her despite her increasingly desperate attempts to maintain order. Then she encountered an article about diaphragmatic breathing. The next day, instead of raising her voice, she began breathing deeply into her lower belly before speaking. Her words, though quieter, carried to the back row with newfound clarity. Within a week, the entire dynamic of her classroom shifted. The connection between these experiences reveals a fundamental truth. Vibrational authority begins in the body. When Edwin tunes a piano, his physical alignment creates a field of coherence that affects everyone in range. When Opal changed her breathing, she altered not just her voice, but her entire energetic signature. The micro-posture recalibration routine integrates these insights into a practical exercise. Begin by planting your feet firmly, hip-width apart. Roll your shoulders back and down, letting them settle naturally. Imagine a golden thread pulling upward from your crown, lengthening your spine. Now, bring attention to your jaw. Relax it completely. Feel the space between your teeth. Let your tongue rest loosely. Notice the subtle shift in your field as these micro-adjustments align. Finally, direct your gaze forward, soft but focused, as though looking at the horizon. Hold this configuration for 3 full breaths. This seemingly simple routine reestablishes your body's natural sovereignty frequency, creating a foundation for authentic command. Chapter 3. Certainty before evidence. Samuel Price's corner store sat at the edge of a neighborhood in decline. While other shops shuttered their windows and posted "going out of business" signs, Samuel meticulously arranged fresh produce in his window displays every morning. He ordered premium inventory, installed bright lighting, and maintained spotless aisles, investments that seemed foolish given his dwindling customer base. "You're preparing for customers you don't have," his wife observed one evening as he carefully labeled organic coffee beans. "No," Samuel replied with a slight smile. "I'm acknowledging the customers who are already here. They just haven't realized it yet." Within 3 months, the first wave of young professionals discovered his store. By year's end, Samuel's shop had become the neighborhood's cornerstone, catalyzing a revival that transformed the entire district. This principle of embodied certainty, living as if your desired reality is already manifest, represents more than positive thinking. It's about aligning your field with the frequency of completion before external evidence appears. Success doesn't create certainty. Certainty creates success. Edith Liu demonstrated this principle when she took over her family's struggling restaurant. Instead of desperately trying to attract customers, she spent her mornings sitting quietly in the empty dining room, absorbing the atmosphere of a thriving establishment. She adjusted the lighting, played soft music, and set each table with precise care, not with hope, but with knowing. She trained her staff to move through the space as if it were already the city's most popular dining spot. "Feel the energy of success in your bones," she instructed them. "Let it inform every movement, every interaction." The shift was subtle but profound. Within weeks, regular customers began commenting on the restaurant's different feeling. Reservations increased, and soon the once empty tables were consistently full. These experiences illuminate a crucial truth. Your field must embody the reality you seek before that reality can materialize. This isn't about pretending or forcing false positivity. It's about tuning your energetic frequency to resonate with your desired outcome. For the certainty-anchoring visualization, find a quiet space and close your eyes. Imagine entering a room where your deepest aspiration is already manifested. Notice the quality of light, the temperature, the sounds. Feel the way your body moves in this reality, your posture, your breathing, the rhythm of your steps. Don't focus on external details. Instead, absorb the feeling tone of accomplishment. Let this sensation sink into your cells until it feels more real than your current circumstances. Hold this state for 5 minutes, allowing your nervous system to record it as a baseline frequency. When complete, carry this embodied knowing with you as you move through your day, letting it inform every action and interaction. This practice bridges the gap between current circumstances and desired outcomes by establishing the energetic template for manifestation. Remember, the external world rearranges itself to match your internal field. Set that field first and reality will follow. Chapter 4. Quieting the Inner Crowd. Martha Ellis stood before her team, delivering a presentation she'd rehearsed for weeks. Despite her thorough preparation, her message wasn't landing. As she spoke, a cascade of internal voices competed for attention. "Are they buying this? That person looks bored. I should have worn different shoes. What if they ask something I can't answer?" Her audience sensed the fractures in her energy field. Though her words were clear, her presence felt scattered, creating a subtle disconnect that undermined her authority. The more she tried to push through, the more her influence diminished. This phenomenon illustrates a fundamental truth about personal power. Internal noise creates external interference. When your mind hosts multiple competing narratives, your field becomes diluted, weakening your impact on the world around you. Consider Thomas Reed, a defense attorney known for handling high-stakes cases. Early in his career, he struggled with an overactive mind during crucial courtroom moments. His breakthrough came when he began a practice of naming his doubts before each trial. "I see you, fear of failure," he would acknowledge. "I hear you, worry about judgment." By naming each internal voice, he created space between his consciousness and his thoughts. These voices didn't disappear, but they lost their power to fragment his presence. During a particularly challenging case, Thomas employed this technique moments before his closing argument. As he rose to address the jury, his field radiated undivided clarity. The courtroom fell silent, not from the power of his words, but from the completeness of his presence. This practice demonstrates how mental stillness amplifies influence. When internal dialogue quiets, your natural authority emerges unobstructed. It's not about eliminating thoughts, but about establishing a clear relationship with them. For the inner witness meditation, find a comfortable position and close your eyes. Begin by observing your thoughts without trying to change them. As each thought arises, simply label it: planning, worrying, remembering. Notice how this creates distance between you and the mental activity. After 5 minutes, shift your attention to the space between thoughts. Notice how your field feels clearer when you're not entangled in mental chatter. Practice maintaining this awareness while slowly opening your eyes and returning to your environment. This meditation strengthens your capacity to maintain presence amid mental activity, allowing your field to remain coherent and powerful regardless of internal conditions. When practiced regularly, it develops an unshakable foundation for authentic influence. The strength of your impact corresponds directly to the clarity of your internal space. As you learn to quiet the mind's unnecessary noise, your natural authority emerges with increasing potency. Chapter 5. The Mirror of Presence. Leonard Briggs entered the chaotic board meeting where raised voices and frantic energy filled the air. Rather than attempting to speak over the discord, he simply took his seat at the head of the table and became completely still. His presence, anchored in unwavering silence, began to affect the room. One by one, the agitated executives noticed his calm demeanor and fell quiet. Within minutes, the entire room had shifted from chaos to focused attention. This magnetic effect of stillness demonstrates a crucial aspect of personal sovereignty. When you master the art of silence, you gain command over any environment without saying a word. Your steadiness becomes a gravitational force that naturally organizes the space around you. The power of sovereign pacing lies in understanding that true authority needs no rush. Those who constantly react to their environment remain at its mercy. Those who set the tempo through measured stillness become its master. Amelia Rose discovered this truth during her first week as hospital chief of staff. In high-pressure situations, she noticed how other doctors would match the frenetic energy of emergencies, their words tumbling out rapidly as they gave orders. Instead, she chose to maintain deliberate eye contact and speak at an unhurried pace, regardless of circumstances. During a particularly intense trauma case, her calm gaze and measured words created an island of clarity amid the chaos. The medical team found themselves automatically synchronizing with her rhythm. Procedures flowed more smoothly, communication became clearer, and outcomes improved, all because one person refused to be rushed by external pressures. This principle reveals how nonverbal authority stems from the courage to remain unhurried. When you grant yourself permission to operate at your natural tempo, others instinctively recognize and respect your sovereignty. The practice of timed silence intervals trains this capacity. Begin with 3 minutes of complete stillness. Focus on your breath while maintaining a relaxed but dignified posture. Notice any urges to shift, speak, or break the silence, but don't act on them. After 3 minutes, Move through your normal activities for 2 minutes, then return to stillness. Repeat this cycle 3 times. As you practice, gradually extend the periods of stillness while decreasing the intervals of movement. This develops your ability to maintain presence without fidgeting or filling space with unnecessary words or actions. Your nervous system learns that silence is not a void to be filled, but a force that amplifies your natural authority. Through this training, you cultivate what ancient wisdom traditions called noble silence, the ability to hold space without being compelled to fill it. This quality becomes particularly powerful in negotiations, leadership, and any situation where maintaining composure directly impacts outcomes. When you master sovereign silence, your mere presence becomes a centering force that naturally commands respect and attention. You no longer need to prove your authority. You simply embody it through unwavering stillness. Chapter 6. The Law of Resonant Attention. Walter Keene had earned a peculiar reputation in his small coastal town. When others lost precious items, wedding rings, family heirlooms, essential documents, they called upon him. His method appeared deceptively simple. He would stand perfectly still, eyes half closed, and attune himself to the space. Then, with unwavering focus, he would move through the environment until his attention drew him to the lost object's location. "The item hasn't moved," he would explain. "Our scattered attention simply renders it invisible. When we sharpen our focus to a laser point, what was hidden naturally reveals itself." This principle of sustained attention creates a magnetic effect that extends far beyond finding lost objects. When you direct your focus with unwavering precision, the universe conspires to bring your object of attention into clearer view. Like a powerful lens concentrating sunlight, focused attention generates a force that illuminates opportunities and attracts solutions. Lila May discovered this truth when she inherited her grandmother's struggling antique shop. Rather than attempting scattered improvements, she focused intensely on one section at a time. Beginning with the window display, she spent 3 full days arranging and rearranging items until the composition felt perfectly aligned. Passers-by began stopping to admire the window, drawn by the palpable intention radiating from the carefully curated space. Lila continued this focused transformation throughout the store, one precise area at a time. Within months, the shop's energy had completely shifted and sales doubled, not through aggressive marketing, but through the magnetic power of sustained attention. This focused state training requires regular practice through the focused attention cycle ritual. Begin by selecting a single object, a flower, a candle, or a simple geometric shape. Set a timer for 3 minutes and pour your complete attention into observing every detail of the object. Notice its texture, its subtle variations in color, the way light plays across its surface. When your mind wanders, gently return your focus to the object without judgment. After 3 minutes, close your eyes and recreate the object in perfect detail within your mind's eye. Hold this internal image for 2 minutes. Finally, open your eyes and compare your mental image to the physical object, noting any discrepancies. This cycle develops your capacity for sustained, precise attention, the foundation of personal magnetism. Through regular practice, you strengthen your ability to direct focused awareness at will, making you naturally magnetic to opportunities, solutions, and success. The power of attention operates like a subtle force field. Just as a magnet's influence extends invisibly through space, your focused awareness creates unseen patterns of attraction. By training this faculty systematically, you develop the ability to draw circumstances, resources, and possibilities into alignment with your intentions. Chapter 7. Body as Instrument. Vernon Hale never spoke about confidence. He embodied it. As head librarian at the city's central branch, his mere presence transformed the atmosphere of any room he entered. His secret wasn't in grand gestures or forceful authority, but in the quiet dignity of his aligned posture. One particularly chaotic afternoon, when a group of rowdy teenagers had turned the reading room into their personal playground, Vernon simply walked to the center of the space. He stood tall, shoulders relaxed yet squared, spine elongated, and breath steady. Without saying a word, his composed bearing radiated such natural authority that the teens instinctively lowered their voices and found their seats. Your body speaks a language more ancient and profound than words. Every cell broadcasts your inner state to the world around you. When you slouch, your biochemistry shifts to produce stress hormones, signaling danger and weakness to others. When you align your posture, you activate neural pathways of confidence and calm, emanating an unshakable presence that others naturally respect. Caroline Fitch discovered this truth during her journey from overwhelmed single mother to successful business owner. Her transformation began not with business plans or marketing strategies, but with a fundamental shift in how she carried herself. Each morning before facing the day's challenges, she would take 5 minutes to align her posture and breathe deeply. I noticed that when I stood tall and moved with purpose, people responded differently, she reflected. Suppliers offered better terms, customers trusted my recommendations, and my children began mimicking my calm demeanor. I wasn't just changing my posture, I was changing the field of possibility around me. This somatic intelligence, the wisdom of the body, forms the foundation of personal power. Your nervous system constantly scans for cues of safety or threat in others. When your posture collapses, you broadcast vulnerability. When you align your structure, you transmit stability and certainty. The 5-minute somatic alignment ritual begins with your feet planted firmly on the ground, hip-width apart. Imagine roots extending deep into the earth. Slowly stack each vertebra, allowing your spine to lengthen naturally. Let your shoulders roll back and down, creating space for your chest to open. Position your head as if suspended by a golden thread from the crown. Breathe deeply into your belly, allowing each exhale to release unnecessary tension. Feel the subtle adjustments your body makes as it finds its natural alignment. This is not about rigid perfection, but about discovering your authentic vertical axis of power. Hold this position while taking 5 full breaths. With each inhale, imagine drawing strength up through your roots. With each exhale, let your field of confidence expand outward. This ritual aligns your physical structure with your innate authority, creating a coherent broadcast of certainty that others can feel and trust. Chapter 8. The Vocabulary of Command. Clay Thompson stood at the center of 2 feuding departments at Marshall & Sons Manufacturing. For weeks, the assembly line and quality control teams had been locked in bitter accusations, their voices growing sharper and louder with each passing day. But Clay didn't raise his voice to match their intensity. Instead, he lowered it. "We're going to address this," he said, each word measured and clear, allowing space between his phrases. "Together." The simple statement, delivered with unwavering certainty, created an immediate shift in the room's energy. His deliberate pacing and grounded tone commanded attention not through volume, but through resonance. Your voice carries more than words. It broadcasts your level of sovereignty. When you speak with measured cadence and intentional phrasing, you activate a frequency of authority that bypasses logical resistance. This isn't about dominating conversations, but about allowing each word to land with the weight of certainty. 3 elements create verbal sovereignty: tempo, tone, and space. Rushed speech signals anxiety, while measured pacing conveys command. A grounded tone that originates from your center rather than your throat carries natural authority. The strategic use of silence between phrases allows your words to resonate and take root. At the Sterling department store, veteran sales associate Ida Pearl demonstrated this principle with elegant simplicity. During a heated exchange with an irate customer, she paused, lowered her pitch slightly, and said with quiet certainty, Let's find a solution that works for both of us." The customer's aggressive energy dissipated immediately, not because of the words themselves, but because of the sovereign frequency they carried. The vibrational quality of your speech matters more than your vocabulary. A simple statement delivered with aligned resonance will impact more powerfully than eloquent words spoken from uncertainty. Your voice becomes a tuning fork, setting the frequency for every interaction. The two-sentence tonal drill trains this capacity. Stand firmly grounded and take 3 deep breaths. Now speak these 2 sentences, allowing a full breath between them. I know who I am. My presence carries natural authority. Focus not on volume, but on allowing each word to emerge from your center, feeling the resonance in your chest before it reaches your throat. Practice this sequence 5 times, noting how the vibration of your voice affects your entire field. The key is not to overpower, but to align your speech with the frequency of unshakable certainty. When you speak from this place, others naturally attune to your resonance, creating field coherence that dissolves resistance and creates space for real solutions. Chapter 9: Boundaries that Bend Reality. Rufus Clark's antique shop sat at the corner of Maple and Pine, a testament to quiet dignity in an increasingly chaotic downtown. While other merchants compromised their standards to chase quick profits, Rufus maintained unwavering principles about the quality of pieces he would accept and sell. When a wealthy collector attempted to pressure him into authenticating a questionable piece, Rufus simply stood in his certainty. "I understand this means a great deal to you," he said, "but I cannot verify what I cannot confirm." The collector pushed, cajoled, and finally threatened to ruin his reputation. Rufus remained unmoved, his energy field steady and contained. Within weeks, that same steadfast adherence to standards attracted 3 major museums seeking his expertise. Your boundaries are not walls, but rather the energetic definition of your sovereign space. Like a cell membrane, they must be both firm and permeable, allowing nourishing exchanges while preventing energetic invasion. When you establish clear boundaries, you create a container for your power to accumulate and concentrate. Consider how water becomes useful only when contained in a glass, a pipe, or a channel. Your personal power follows the same principle. Without clear boundaries, it disperses and dissipates. Evelyn May discovered this truth when she inherited her grandmother's sprawling Victorian home. The house had become a repository for relatives' unwanted furniture and random storage. Each room held the scattered energy of others' indecision and delay. One morning, Evelyn May stood in her doorway and made a simple declaration. This space honors order and intention. She began returning items to their owners, establishing clear guidelines for what could enter her home. As her space became more defined, her entire life gained clarity and momentum. Within months, she had launched a successful home-based business, attracted meaningful relationships, and found herself sleeping more deeply than she had in years. The power of boundaries lies not in rigid resistance, but in clear, energetic definition. Like a river needs banks to flow with force, your personal power requires consistent containment to generate meaningful impact. The boundary rehearsal practice strengthens this capacity. Stand in a quiet room and extend your arms outward, palms facing away from your body. Slowly rotate in a complete circle, imagining you're drawing a clear, energetic line around your sovereign space. As you turn, speak these words with quiet authority. This is my field. What enters here must align with my highest good. Complete 3 full rotations, feeling the boundary growing more distinct with each turn. Then stand still, arms at your sides, and sense the contained power of your defined space. Your boundaries become the crucible within which your sovereign power concentrates and matures. They are not barriers, but rather the essential definition of where you end and others begin. In maintaining clear boundaries, you honor both yourself and those around you, creating space for authentic connection rather than energetic confusion. Chapter 10. The First Practice. Milton Hayes discovered the power of presence quite by accident. As the head librarian at the Central Branch, he'd grown frustrated with perpetually being overlooked during staff meetings. One afternoon, before a particularly important gathering, he remembered the alignment techniques he'd been practicing. Standing outside the conference room, Milton adjusted his posture, lengthening his spine, relaxing his shoulders, and centering his weight evenly on both feet. He took 3 deliberate breaths before entering. The shift was immediate and unmistakable. Colleagues who typically talked over him now paused when he spoke. His suggestions, previously ignored, suddenly garnered serious consideration. Intrigued, Milton began systematically testing this phenomenon in different environments. He would enter coffee shops, bookstores, and community meetings, alternating between his habitual slouch and his newly cultivated presence. He meticulously documented the responses he received, everything from eye contact to service quality to the way people moved around him. The fundamental truth became clear. Your field precedes you into every space you enter. The room is reading your energy before you speak a single word. What Milton discovered was the room test, a precise protocol for measuring and maximizing your sovereign presence. This isn't about manipulation, it's about calibration. Like tuning an instrument before a performance, you're aligning your field to its natural resonance. Grace Ellen, a newly promoted department manager, applied this understanding to transform her leadership presence. Every morning before entering her office, she would pause in the parking lot to conduct the room test protocol. She adjusted her posture, regulated her breath, and set her attention with deliberate care. The first few times felt artificial, she later reported, but I kept at it, treating each entrance as a fresh opportunity to embody sovereignty. Within weeks, she noticed her team responding differently. Meetings became more focused, decisions more decisive, and interdepartmental communications more effective. The room test protocol works because it combines all elements of field sovereignty into a single measurable practice. It transforms abstract concepts into concrete feedback, allowing you to refine your presence through direct observation. Here is the complete room test protocol. Before entering any significant space, stand quietly for 30 seconds. Scan your posture from feet to crown. Release unnecessary tension, particularly in your jaw and shoulders. Take 5 measured breaths, extending the exhale. Set your gaze at eye level, neither dominant nor submissive. Enter the space with measured steps, maintaining your aligned posture. Note 3 specific observations. How do people react to your entrance? What shifts in the room's energy? How does your own field respond to the environment? After leaving, document your observations. Rate each aspect on a scale of 1 to 10. Your initial state, your maintained presence, and the room's response. This creates a baseline for improvement and allows you to track your progress over time. Through consistent practice, you'll develop an increasingly refined awareness of how your field influences and is influenced by every space you enter. This isn't about dominating rooms. It's about entering them with full sovereignty, ready to contribute your authentic presence to whatever unfolds. Part 2. Deepening Understanding and Practice. Chapter 11. The Alchemy of Fear and Force. Sheriff Boyd stood at the entrance of the rowdy saloon, his hand hovering near his holster. 20 years of law enforcement had taught him that force often escalated situations, yet his instinct still pulled him toward confrontation. Inside, a dispute between ranch hands had turned volatile, threatening to erupt into violence. Boyd burst through the doors, badge gleaming, voice booming with practiced authority. But his show of force only amplified the tension. The ranch hands, fueled by whiskey and wounded pride, squared up for a fight. Boyd felt his own fear rising, disguised as anger, and recognized the familiar spiral toward violence. Then he remembered his mentor's words. True authority doesn't shout, it resonates. Taking a deep breath, Boyd consciously relaxed his shoulders and lowered his hands. He softened his gaze and allowed his presence to fill the room naturally, without force. The shift was subtle but profound. The ranch hands, initially bristling for confrontation, began to sense the change in the field. "Gentlemen," Boyd said quietly, his voice carrying not through volume, but through certainty, "let's discuss this properly." The energy in the room transformed, and within minutes the dispute dissolved into peaceful resolution. Fear, when unacknowledged, becomes the hidden conductor of our actions. It pushes us toward forceful displays that ultimately undermine our true authority. The moment we release our grip on fear, genuine influence naturally emerges. Louise Martinez discovered this truth on the factory floor. For months, she'd struggled with an antagonistic supervisor, meeting his criticism with defensive tension. Each interaction left her feeling diminished, her work suffering under the weight of anticipated confrontation. One morning, Louise tried something different. Instead of armoring herself for their daily inspection, she focused on softening internally. She didn't change her actions or words, only her internal relationship with fear. As her supervisor approached, she noticed her habitual tension rising but chose not to resist it. "I allowed the fear to be there," Louise later explained, "but I stopped letting it drive my responses." The supervisor's behavior didn't immediately change, but Louise's relationship to the situation transformed completely. Her internal shift gradually altered their dynamic, and within weeks, their interactions had evolved from confrontational to collaborative. The fear to certainty breathwork practice emerged from these understandings. Begin by sitting quietly and acknowledging any fear present in your body. Locate where you feel it most intensely. As you inhale, allow yourself to fully experience this sensation without resistance. With each exhale, imagine the fear transmuting into calm certainty. Continue this breath cycle for 5 minutes, maintaining gentle awareness of the transformation taking place. This isn't about eliminating fear, it's about changing your relationship with it. Fear, when embraced rather than rejected, becomes a doorway to deeper sovereignty. Practice this especially before challenging situations. The goal isn't to become fearless, but to develop the capacity to maintain presence even when fear arises. True authority emerges not from the absence of fear, but from our ability to remain centered within it. Chapter 12. Rhythm and Breathwork for Alpha. Clyde Hawthorne approached the corral where 3 wild mustangs paced nervously, their nostrils flaring at his presence. Other ranchers had tried breaking these horses through force, ending up with broken bones and shattered confidence. But Clyde knew a deeper truth about dominance. Standing perfectly still, he began drawing long, steady breaths into his belly. Each inhale lasted 4 counts, each exhale stretched to 6. The horse's ears twitched forward, sensing the subtle shift in the field around them. As Clyde maintained his measured breathing, the Mustang's agitated movements began to slow, matching his unhurried rhythm. Within 20 minutes, the horses had stopped pacing. Within an hour, they stood quietly, their own breathing synchronized with Clyde's steady cadence. Without a rope or whip in sight, he had established leadership through nothing more than regulated breath. The alpha breath operates as a reset switch for your nervous system. When you establish a steady, measured breathing pattern, you broadcast a signal of unshakable calm that others instinctively align with. This isn't about controlling your breath, it's about allowing your breath to ground your presence. Miriam Chen discovered this principle during her piano performances. Early in her career, she would rush through difficult passages, her shallow breathing creating tension that spread to her audience. During one crucial recital, she noticed her mentor in the front row, breathing with exaggerated slowness. Following his example, Miriam began pacing her playing to match a slower breath rhythm. The change was immediate, not just in her performance, but in the entire concert hall. The audience leaned in, their own breathing unconsciously synchronizing with her measured tempo. "I realized I wasn't just playing the piano," Miriam later explained. "I was conducting the room's energy through my breath." This alignment between breath and state represents one of the most fundamental principles of field sovereignty. Your breath pattern becomes the metronome to which others unconsciously entrain. By mastering the alpha breath sequence, you establish a baseline of unshakable presence. The practice begins with a 4-count inhale through the nose, allowing your belly to expand naturally. Hold for 2 counts at the top, then release for a 6-count exhale through slightly parted lips, feeling your body settle into gravity. Maintain this rhythm for 7 cycles, allowing each breath to be slightly deeper than the last. As you practice, imagine your breath creating a sphere of calm influence that extends 3 feet in every direction. With each cycle, let this sphere expand, carrying your steady presence further into your surroundings. This is not a visualization exercise. It's a tangible transmission of coherent energy through regulated breath. The alpha breath sequence should be practiced 3 times daily, upon waking, before any significant interaction, and whenever you need to reset your field. The goal is not relaxation, but the establishment of a sovereign rhythm that others naturally attune to. Chapter 13. Imagination as Tactical Vision. Russell Matthews stood before the maze of wires in the old factory's electrical panel, his eyes closed. Other electricians had declared the job impossible. Decades of modifications had turned the wiring into an incomprehensible tangle. But Russell wasn't looking at the physical mess. Instead, he was seeing the completed repair in his mind with crystalline clarity. In his internal vision, each wire followed its proper path. He could feel the satisfying click of components sliding into place, sense the hum of properly balanced current. For 10 minutes, he remained motionless, allowing this end state to embed itself in his nervous system. When he finally opened his eyes and began working, his hands moved with quiet certainty. Within hours, he had accomplished what others had deemed impossible. The factory manager was astounded. "How did you know which wires to trace?" he asked. Russell simply smiled. "I let the finished version show me the way." Pre-sculpting reality through visualization operates on a fundamental principle. Your nervous system cannot distinguish between a vividly imagined experience and a physical one. When you fully embody a future outcome, you create neural pathways that guide your actions toward that reality. Agnes Turner discovered this truth while working as a clerk at the county courthouse. Each morning before opening, she would sit at her desk and run through her ideal day in vivid detail. She felt the satisfaction of efficiently processing permits, experienced the warmth of positive interactions, and embodied the calm competence that defined excellent service. Within weeks, her window had become the most requested in the courthouse. "I'm not doing anything different physically," she explained to a colleague. "I'm just allowing my body to follow the path it's already walked in my mind." The power of pre-sculpting lies not in mere mental imagery, but in somatic imagination, allowing your entire nervous system to experience the desired outcome. This creates what we call a field template that reality naturally flows into. The 3-phase visualization begins with settling. Sit comfortably and feel your body's weight fully supported. Breathe deeply until your mind quiets and your awareness fills your entire form. In the second phase, sculpting, choose a specific outcome you wish to create. Rather than watching it like a movie, step fully into the experience. Feel the physical sensations, hear the sounds, notice the quality of light. Let your body respond as if this future moment is happening now. The final phase, anchoring, involves maintaining this embodied state for several minutes while continuing your normal breathing. This allows the template to set firmly in your nervous system, creating a clear pathway for manifestation. As you practice, notice how your body begins to recognize and move toward the states you've pre-sculpted. This isn't imagination, it's advanced field navigation through somatic intelligence. Chapter 14. The Court of Witnesses. Irving Marshall stood at his typesetting machine, fingers hovering over the keys as doubt crept in. For 20 years, he'd worked at the Herald Tribune, setting type with meticulous precision. But today's front-page story required unprecedented speed, and the familiar voices of criticism began their assault. "You'll make mistakes," whispered one. "You're too slow," hissed another. Irving's hands trembled slightly as the deadline loomed. Then he remembered what his mentor had taught him about replacing these inner critics. He closed his eyes and imagined his grandfather, a master printer, standing beside him with steady confidence. "You've been preparing for this moment your whole career." His grandfather's voice resonated within. Irving added the image of his first teacher, Mrs. Henderson, who had recognized his gift for precision. "Your attention to detail is your strength," her voice joined in. One by one, he populated his mind with supporters until the critics fell silent. When Irving opened his eyes, his hands moved with fluid certainty. He completed the page in record time, without a single error. The voice that had once whispered "too slow" was replaced by his grandfather's steady assurance. The fear of mistakes transformed into Mrs. Henderson's appreciation for his care. "Your inner world is a council chamber, and you choose its members. Every thought pattern is a voice given authority through repetition. The power lies not in silencing critics, but in installing wiser counselors." Dorothy Wells discovered this when preparing to open her millinery shop. Each time she faced a decision, anxiety would paralyze her. Then she began cultivating an inner council of imagined mentors, successful businesswomen she admired, her grandmother who had run a general store during the Depression, even historical figures known for their resilience. Before making decisions, Dorothy would close her eyes and convene her council. She felt her grandmother's practical wisdom, heard Clara Barton's words about service, sensed the steady confidence of local shopkeepers she respected. These allies weren't just imagination, they were new neural pathways, alternative responses to challenge. Within months, Dorothy's shop became known not just for its hats, but for the assured presence she brought to every customer interaction. Her inner counsel had reshaped her field. The witness invocation begins by sitting quietly and identifying a current challenge. Feel where doubt or criticism creates tension in your body. Now imagine a wise supporter standing beside you. Build their presence in detail, their posture, their voice, the feeling of their steady confidence. Add another supporter behind your left shoulder, then another behind your right. Let their collective wisdom and belief in you fill the space. Feel how your body responds to their presence. Notice how your breathing changes, how your posture shifts. These witnesses aren't fictional constructs. They're aspects of your own wisdom given form. Their voices are neural pathways to your highest capabilities. By regularly invoking their presence, you rewire your default responses to challenge. The council chamber of your mind always has room for wiser voices. Choose them carefully, embody their presence fully, and let their collective wisdom guide your field toward mastery. Chapter 15. Presence in Conflict. Conductor William Hayes faced a mutiny. His orchestra, frustrated by a demanding new piece, had devolved into heated arguments during rehearsal. First violins blamed second violins, woodwinds criticized brass, and tension crackled through the concert hall. Instead of raising his voice or tapping his baton for attention, Hayes remained motionless on the podium. His posture stayed aligned, his breathing steady. He didn't shift his weight or fidget. He simply maintained his presence, eyes soft but alert as the chaos swirled around him. Gradually, musicians began noticing his stillness. Like waves breaking against a lighthouse, their agitation found no purchase in his calm. One by one they fell silent, their attention drawn to his unwavering center. Within minutes, the entire orchestra had quieted, their collective field reoriented to his grounded state. "From measure 63, Hayes said softly, lifting his baton. The orchestra played with renewed focus, the previous conflict dissolved by his non-reactive dominance. True sovereignty never wrestles with chaos. It simply maintains its frequency until disorder naturally realigns. Like a mountain unmoved by storms, your grounded presence becomes the reference point around which others stabilize. Margaret Turner discovered this principle while managing the telephone exchange. The switchboard room often erupted in stress during peak hours, with operators snapping at each other as calls flooded in. Rather than adding her own tension to the mix, Margaret would plant her feet firmly, straighten her spine, and breathe deeply. She moved through the room with measured steps, her movements unhurried despite the frenzy. Her calm presence became an anchor, spreading like ripples through water. Operators began matching their breathing to hers, their movements becoming more precise and less frantic. Within weeks, the exchange developed a reputation for exceptional service. The operators hadn't changed, but Margaret's steady field had transformed their collective state. Your response to conflict shapes its evolution. Every reaction feeds the chaos. Every moment of grounded presence invites order. This isn't passive acceptance. It's active field maintenance. The conflict stillness drill begins by recalling a recent tension-filled situation. Feel the physical sensations that arose. The tightened muscles, shortened breath, narrowed focus. Now, imagine roots extending from your feet deep into the earth. Breathe into your lower belly. As you maintain this rootedness, replay the situation. Feel provocative words or actions washing over you like waves, while your core remains unmoved. Practice holding this state for longer periods, starting with 30 seconds and building to 5 minutes. Your sovereignty isn't measured by your ability to dominate chaos, but by your capacity to maintain stillness within it. When you refuse to be displaced from your center, you become the eye of the storm around which calm naturally gathers. Chapter 16. Social Calibration. The small barbershop on Cedar Street held stories in its silence. Elias Thompson could read them all, the lingering tension from rushed morning appointments, the warmth of friendly conversations, the hesitation of new customers. Before speaking a single word, he would pause at his station, hands resting lightly on his chair, sensing the invisible currents flowing through the room. On this particular morning, he noticed the field shift as soon as James Walker entered. The retired police chief's presence brought a weight to the atmosphere, his unspoken burden palpable in the air. Other barbers might have launched into their usual chatter, but Elias recognized that this field required a different approach. He gestured silently to his chair, matching his movements to the room's subdued energy. Only after several minutes of quiet work did he feel the field soften enough for conversation. When he finally spoke, his words emerged naturally from the shared silence, allowing James to unburden himself about his wife's illness. The art of reading fields lies not in analyzing words or actions, but in developing sensitivity to the underlying energetic patterns that precede them. Every space carries its own frequency, shaped by the collective state of its occupants and the residue of recent events. At the Central Library, Ruth Henderson demonstrated this principle daily. She'd learned that the success of her reading recommendations depended less on her knowledge of books than on her ability to attune to each patron's energetic state. When Professor Mills arrived, agitated about a research deadline, Ruth noticed how his rushed energy disrupted the library's contemplative field. Instead of immediately offering suggestions, she adjusted her own presence, slowing her movements, softening her voice, creating a pocket of calm that gradually influenced his state. Only then did she guide him to the references he needed. "The resources you're looking for are in the East Wing," she said, her measured pace encouraging him to match it. "Shall we walk there together?" By the time they reached the shelves, his frantic energy had settled into focused attention. Field sensitivity begins with recognizing that every interaction occurs within an energetic context. Before words are spoken or actions taken, the field itself communicates essential information. Learning to read these subtle signals allows you to navigate social spaces with greater precision and impact. The three-environment field scan develops this awareness through structured practice. Choose 3 different locations you visit regularly, perhaps a workplace, a cafe, and a home space. Upon entering each environment, pause for 30 seconds. Notice the quality of the air, the level of tension or ease in your body, the pace of movement around you. Ask yourself, what is the dominant frequency here? How does it affect your own state? What adjustments would bring this field into greater harmony? Record your observations without judgment, building a vocabulary for the subtle differences between spaces. This scanning practice reveals patterns typically hidden beneath conscious awareness, allowing you to shape fields rather than simply react to them. Your sovereignty extends beyond personal presence to include the artful reading and modulation of collective energetic states. Chapter 17. The Currency of Tone. The congregation buzzed with tension that Sunday morning. 2 prominent families had brought their feud into the chapel, their whispered accusations threatening to erupt into open conflict. Reverend Abner Whitfield stood at his pulpit, watching the atmosphere deteriorate as more parishioners took sides. Just as Mrs. Henderson rose to confront Mrs. Phillips, Abner spoke a single sentence: "The peace of the Lord dwells in this house." His voice carried neither force nor judgment, just an unshakable certainty that seemed to ripple through the air. The effect was immediate. Bodies settled back into pews, breaths deepened, and the charged atmosphere dissolved into something approaching reverence. The power of tonal authority lies not in volume or forceful delivery, but in the efficient transmission of certainty through sound. Every unnecessary word, every tonal flourish, dilutes the impact of your communication. Like a master sculptor who removes everything that isn't the statue, mastery of voice requires stripping away everything that doesn't serve the core message. Viola Barrett discovered this principle during crucial negotiations at the cannery where she worked as floor supervisor. For months, management had dismissed worker concerns about safety conditions. During the final meeting, instead of launching into her prepared arguments, she simply stated, "We require proper ventilation by Friday." The weight of her tone, stripped of explanation or justification, shifted the entire dynamic. The manager who had been dismissive now leaned forward, sensing the immovable certainty behind her words. This demonstrates how tonal economy creates magnetic authority. When you remove the clutter of over-explanation and emotional coloring from your speech, what remains carries unprecedented power. Your voice becomes a pure channel for your inner certainty. The 3-tonality rehearsal develops this capacity through focused practice. Choose a simple statement of fact. The door is closed. First, speak it with your normal voice, noting any habits of inflection or unnecessary modulation. Then deliver it with deliberate authority, allowing your tone to emerge from a place of unshakable knowing. Finally, speak it with calm command, as though the very vibration of your voice could align reality with your words. Record each variation, observing how subtle shifts in resonance affect the impact of your communication. The goal isn't to adopt an artificial voice, but to discover how your natural tone can become a more precise instrument of your sovereign presence. Chapter 18. Rituals of Reaffirmation. Ellis Matthews arrived at the post office each morning at precisely 5:45 a.m., 15 minutes before his shift began. While others rushed in moments before clock-in, Ellis maintained an unwavering sequence that transformed an ordinary government building into sacred ground. He would walk the perimeter of the sorting room 3 times, each circle accompanied by deep breaths that seemed to expand the space itself. Then, standing at his station, he would close his eyes and visualize every letter and package finding its perfect destination. By the time his colleagues arrived, Ellis had already shaped the day's energetic container. The results spoke volumes. His route completions exceeded averages, complaints dropped to 0, and even the most challenging customers seemed to soften in his presence. What appeared to others as mere luck or talent was actually the fruit of consistent ritual practice. Ritual is not mere routine. It is the deliberate act of stepping into your chosen identity. Each morning, Ellis wasn't just preparing for work. He was embodying the role of guardian and guide for thousands of important communications. His ritual wasn't about what he did, but who he became through the doing. This truth revealed itself powerfully in the story of Anne Crawford, the proprietor of a small bookshop. During a period of financial uncertainty, her usual clarity and confidence began to waver. Sales declined as her inner turmoil reflected in the store's atmosphere. Then she remembered her grandmother's practice of blessing the threshold, a morning ritual of touching each doorway while speaking words of welcome and abundance. At first, Anne felt foolish, but as she continued each morning, something shifted. The simple act of consciously blessing her space restored her sovereign presence. Customers remarked on the shop's renewed warmth. Book recommendations flowed more naturally. Revenue steadily climbed. These accounts illuminate the deeper mechanics of ritual. When performed with presence and intention, rituals become bridges between your current state and your sovereign identity. They are not about perfection, but persistence. Each repetition deepens the groove of embodiment. The morning consecration ritual synthesizes these principles into a powerful practice. Begin by creating a dedicated space. Even a small corner will suffice. Stand with feet shoulder-width apart, eyes closed. Take 3 deep breaths, each one drawing your attention inward. Speaking in a clear, measured tone, state your name and declare, "I consecrate this day to the expression of my sovereign nature." Touch your heart, your forehead, and extend your hands palms up. Visualize golden light filling your body from crown to feet. Feel yourself becoming a living channel for your highest purpose. Complete the ritual by opening your eyes and gazing steadily at a fixed point, allowing your new state to settle into every cell. The entire sequence should take no more than 5 minutes, but its effects will ripple throughout your day. What matters is not the specific gestures, but the quality of presence you bring to them. Through consistent practice, this ritual becomes an anchor for your sovereign identity, a daily recommitment to operating from your center of power. Chapter 19. The Ethics of Command. Constable Roy Blackwood patrolled the streets of his small town with an iron fist, mistaking fear for respect. His heavy footsteps sent shopkeepers scrambling and children hiding. He wielded his authority like a weapon, believing that intimidation equaled control. But beneath his stern exterior, Roy felt a gnawing emptiness, the hollow echo of power without purpose. Everything changed the day he encountered old Mr. Jenkins having a heart attack on Main Street. In that moment, Roy's usual commanding presence dissolved into genuine concern. As he cradled the elderly man's head while waiting for medical help, something shifted. The townspeople who gathered didn't scatter in fear. They stepped forward to assist, responding to his calm, purposeful leadership. This marked the beginning of Roy's transformation. He discovered that true authority flowed not from force but from service. His patrols became opportunities for connection rather than control. Crime rates dropped not because people feared him, but because they trusted him. The essence of sovereign power lies in its foundation of integrity. When your authority springs from clear values and genuine service, it becomes an invitation rather than a demand. Power wielded with purpose creates a field of mutual respect that transforms relationships and environments. This truth found beautiful expression through Frances Miller, a midwife whose quiet strength guided hundreds of mothers through their darkest moments. During difficult deliveries, she never raised her voice or imposed her will. Instead, her unwavering presence and gentle confidence created a container of safety that allowed natural processes to unfold. One particularly challenging birth tested everything Frances knew about power. A first-time mother, terrified and resistant, fought against her own body's wisdom. Rather than forcing compliance, Frances sat quietly beside her, matching her breathing to the mother's frantic pace before slowly, steadily slowing it down. Without a word of command, the mother's breathing synchronized with hers. The baby arrived shortly after, the mother's fear transformed into triumphant strength. Frances understood that true power operates like water. It flows rather than forces, supports rather than suppresses. Her authority came not from controlling others, but from standing firmly in her own truth while holding space for theirs. The Values Clarity exercise distills these lessons into practical application. Find a quiet space and close your eyes. Recall 3 moments when you felt most aligned with your highest self. For each memory, identify the core value it expressed. Perhaps it was courage, compassion, or integrity. Write these values down. Now remember 3 instances when you felt disconnected from your power. What values were compromised in those moments? Notice how misaligned action weakens your field, while value-driven choices strengthen it. Complete the exercise by crafting a personal power statement that integrates your core values. This becomes your ethical compass, guiding how you wield influence in the world. Return to this statement whenever you feel tempted to force rather than flow, control rather than connect. Chapter 20. The Second Practice. Calvin Marshall stood at the edge of his brother's wedding reception, observing the growing tension in the room. The best man's speech had fallen flat, the caterers were running behind, and the summer heat was fraying everyone's nerves. Rather than rushing to fix each problem, Calvin closed his eyes and centered himself, remembering what his grandfather taught him about holding space. He began moving through the room with deliberate slowness, pausing here and there to simply stand and breathe. Where he lingered, conversation softened and laughter emerged. Without saying a word, his calm presence created islands of peace that gradually expanded and merged. Within 30 minutes, the entire reception had shifted from chaos to celebration. Field shaping is the art of consciously projecting your inner state into your environment. Like a tuning fork that brings nearby strings into harmony, your centered presence can realign the energetic frequency of any space you enter. This isn't about forcing change. It's about becoming so stable in your own vibration that others naturally attune to your field. Nora Bennett discovered this principle during her first year teaching at an inner-city school. Her classroom was known as the most challenging, filled with students other teachers had given up on. Instead of trying to control through discipline, Nora arrived early each morning to sit quietly at her desk, intentionally cultivating a field of focused calm. As students entered, she maintained this steady state, refusing to be pulled into their chaos. By the 3rd week, something remarkable happened. The usual morning disruptions began to dissolve before they fully formed. Students who normally sparked conflicts found themselves inexplicably drawn into quiet focus. One day, a chronic troublemaker paused at her desk and asked, "Why does it feel different in here?" The 7-day field shaping ritual builds this capacity systematically. Each morning, choose a specific quality you wish to embody, perhaps clarity, confidence, or compassion. Spend 5 minutes in meditation, fully experiencing this state in your body. As you move through your day, pause every hour to renew this frequency. Notice how different environments respond to your field. On day 1, practice in solitude. Day 2, expand to your home environment. Day 3, bring it to one-on-one interactions. Day 4, small groups. Day 5, larger gatherings. Day 6, challenging situations. On the final day, maintain your chosen field in all contexts, noting how your presence affects each space you enter. Field shaping reveals that change doesn't require force or manipulation. By holding a clear, consistent frequency, you create an invitation for others to shift into resonance with your state. This is the essence of non-coercive leadership, transformation through presence rather than pressure. Part 3, Mastery and Transformation. Chapter 21. The Silent Signature. Judge Marcus Alton never raised his voice in his courtroom. When tensions escalated between attorneys or witnesses became belligerent, he simply adjusted his posture, deepened his breath, and directed his unwavering attention toward the source of disruption. The shift was invariable. Voices would lower, shoulders would relax, and order would restore itself without a single word being spoken. Fellow judges marveled at how Alton maintained such pristine control of his courtroom. What they failed to notice were the subtle ways he orchestrated energy through presence alone. When attorneys approached the bench, he would draw himself up to his full height, creating a field of gravity that commanded respect. During testimony, his focused attention became a spotlight that extracted truth more effectively than cross-examination. The mastery of nonverbal command rests on 3 pillars: structural alignment, energetic containment, and directed attention. Your body's position broadcasts constant messages about your internal state. When you achieve true postural sovereignty, your presence alone becomes an organizing force in any environment. In the quiet workshop of Eliza Blackwood, this principle found its perfect expression. As the town's most respected clockmaker, she ran an apprenticeship program that transformed unruly youths into masterful craftsmen. Unlike other masters who relied on harsh words and strict rules, Eliza shaped behavior through silent example. When an apprentice's work grew sloppy, she would simply stand near their workbench, her own movements precise and measured. Without criticism or correction, the young worker's hands would begin to mirror her careful grace. If conflict arose between apprentices, she would position herself between them, her calm presence dissipating tension like morning mist in sunlight. The 3-phase silence ritual develops this capacity systematically. In Phase 1, spend 10 minutes in complete stillness, focusing only on structural alignment. Feel how small adjustments in your spine, shoulders, and jaw affect your energetic broadcast. Phase 2 introduces sustained eye contact with a fixed point. For 5 minutes, maintain both postural alignment and unwavering attention, noting how this combination creates a palpable field of influence around you. In Phase 3, move through a space while maintaining both alignment and focused attention. Practice this in progressively more challenging environments, first alone, then in public spaces, and finally in situations of conflict or chaos. Your silent presence becomes a stabilizing force, transforming environments without a single word spoken. Through this practice, you discover that true authority needs no voice. Like Judge Alton's courtroom or Eliza's workshop, your aligned presence becomes a field of order that naturally organizes chaos into harmony. Chapter 22. Synchrony with Fate. Captain Moses Thorne had navigated the misty waters of Chesapeake Bay for 30 years, yet he never relied solely on instruments. While other captains fixated on radar and weather reports, Moses attended to subtler signs, the way seabirds flew, slight changes in wind direction, or unusual patterns in the waves. His fellow sailors called it uncanny how he'd alter course moments before unexpected storms or find safe passage through seemingly impenetrable fog. One particular morning, despite clear skies and favorable forecasts, Moses felt a peculiar tension in the air. He delayed departure by 30 minutes, much to his passengers' frustration. Just as the ferry finally pulled away, word came of a disabled vessel that had drifted into the main channel, right where his ferry would have been had they departed on schedule. The universe speaks in whispers, not shouts. True mastery lies in recognizing the constant stream of subtle indicators guiding your path. When you align with this hidden language, timing becomes less about planning and more about reading the rhythms already present in each moment. In her small dress shop on Main Street, Della Morrison discovered this truth through years of careful observation. She noticed that her most significant sales often occurred when she followed her instincts about when to approach customers, when to remain silent, and even when to rearrange her window displays. One quiet Tuesday afternoon, Della felt an inexplicable urge to move a particular blue dress to the center of her window. Within an hour, a bride-to-be walked in, distraught because her maid of honor had nothing to wear for the upcoming wedding. The blue dress was exactly what they needed, in precisely the right size. "I almost closed early today," Della later confided to a friend, "but something told me to wait." That simple decision led to not only the dress sale, but also orders for the entire wedding party's attire. The language of synchronicity operates through subtle cues, a recurring thought, an unexpected pause, a moment of clarity. These signals arise from the field of infinite intelligence that surrounds us, offering guidance more precise than logical planning could provide. The synchronicity tracking practice develops your sensitivity to these subtle indicators. Begin by maintaining a daily log of coincidences, no matter how small they seem. Note the timing of unexpected encounters, surprising solutions to problems, or moments when you feel inexplicably drawn to take specific actions. Pay special attention to 3 types of signals: physical sensations that precede significant events, recurring patterns in your environment, and moments of inexplicable certainty. Record not just what happened, but how it felt beforehand. This practice gradually attunes your awareness to the subtle language of timing that underlies all successful action. Through this deepening sensitivity, you begin to recognize that every moment carries its own intelligence. Like Captain Moses reading the waters or Della sensing the perfect moment to act, you develop an intuitive grasp of timing that transcends conventional planning. Chapter 23. Commanding Time. Emery Blackwood's clock shop was a sanctuary of precise rhythms. Each timepiece moved with its own cadence, from the stately grandfather clocks to the swift-ticking pocket watches. Yet, despite the mechanical perfection surrounding him, Emery found himself increasingly overwhelmed by the frantic pace of modern demands. Orders piled up, customers grew impatient, and his normally steady hands began to shake. One morning, as anxiety threatened to overtake him, Emery noticed something peculiar. While adjusting a particularly complex mechanism, he found his breathing naturally synchronizing with its movement. As he matched his internal rhythm to the clock's measured beat, his stress began to dissolve. From that day forward, Emery discovered he could regulate his state by consciously choosing which clock's tempo to align with. When circumstances demanded quick decisions, he'd attune to the brisk rhythm of a stopwatch. For detailed work requiring patience, he'd sync with the dignified pace of a grandfather clock. Your relationship with time isn't fixed. It's a dynamic interaction that responds to your internal state. Just as a conductor shapes an orchestra's tempo, you can adjust your inner rhythm to match the demands of any situation. Helen Matthews, director of the city's renowned choir, encountered this truth while preparing for a crucial performance. Her singers struggled with a particularly challenging piece, growing more frustrated with each rehearsal. Rather than pushing harder, Helen had them step away from the music entirely. She guided them through an exercise in collective breathing, establishing a shared rhythm that was neither rushed nor lethargic. When they returned to the piece, she had them sing at half speed, allowing each note to fully resonate. Gradually, she increased the tempo until they reached the intended pace. The breakthrough came not from forcing the original tempo, but from building a new relationship with time itself. This principle of temporal flexibility reveals a profound truth. Time is not a rigid taskmaster, but a malleable medium that responds to your conscious attention. By developing skill in temporal alignment, you gain the ability to expand or contract your experience of time to serve your highest purpose. The dual tempo practice cultivates this mastery through deliberate contrast. Begin by choosing two distinct activities, one requiring swift action, another demanding patient attention. Spend 3 minutes alternating between them, consciously shifting your internal rhythm to match each task's natural tempo. Notice how your breathing, movement, and thought patterns adjust with each transition. As you practice, you'll discover that time isn't happening to you, it's responding to you. Like Emery finding calm among his clocks or Helen guiding her choir to mastery, you can learn to shape time rather than be shaped by it. Chapter 24. Wealth as Vibrational Outcome. Byron Reed inherited a failing general store on the outskirts of town, a place where dust gathered on shelves and hope had long since departed. The previous owner had spent years frantically slashing prices and chasing customers. But Byron took a different approach. Instead of immediate action, he spent his first week sitting quietly behind the counter, observing the store's energy. Each morning, he would arrive before sunrise, light a single lamp, and attune himself to the space. He noticed how his anxiety about finances created a subtle tension that customers could sense. Rather than forcing changes, he focused on cultivating an inner steadiness that matched the quality of success he wished to create. Gradually, he began rearranging items not based on conventional retail wisdom, but on what felt harmonious. He priced goods according to their true value rather than fear of competition. Most importantly, he maintained an unwavering certainty that abundance was the store's natural state. Within months, the store's atmosphere transformed. Customers remarked that shopping there felt different, more peaceful, more inviting. Sales increased not through aggressive tactics, but through Byron's sustained vibrational alignment with prosperity. Wealth, at its core, is not a matter of strategy but of frequency. When your inner state resonates with abundance, external circumstances naturally align to match that vibration. Fear of lack creates contraction, while certainty and abundance allows the natural flow of prosperity. June Marshall discovered this principle while managing a small diner. Despite working longer hours and cutting costs, the business struggled. One evening, exhausted from worry, she decided to stop fighting. Instead of focusing on what was missing, she began appreciating what was present: the warmth of the space, the loyalty of regular customers, the skill of her staff. She started each day by walking through the diner, touching each table with gratitude, regardless of whether customers filled them. She spoke to vendors and employees as though success was already assured. Most crucially, she maintained this practice even when the evidence suggested otherwise. Within weeks, unexpected opportunities emerged. A local business began ordering daily lunches. A food critic wrote a glowing review. The diner's prosperity grew not from June's actions, but from her sustained resonance with abundance. This isn't magical thinking, it's vibrational mechanics. Your relationship with wealth creates a field that either attracts or repels prosperity. The key lies not in external actions, but in maintaining an inner frequency aligned with abundance. The wealth attunement ritual begins with sitting in silence for 5 minutes, breathing deeply. Place your hands palms up, imagining abundance as a golden light flowing through your body. Feel the sensation of having your desires already fulfilled. Next, spend 3 minutes moving through your space, touching objects while emanating gratitude. Finally, stand still and declare, "I am aligned with the frequency of infinite abundance. All prosperity flows to and through me with ease." Repeat this ritual daily, preferably at sunrise. Chapter 25. Love and Dominion. Abram Whitaker stood in his drought-stricken fields, watching his farmhands argue over water distribution. The men's voices grew harsh under the merciless sun, each defending their section's needs. Instead of shouting orders, Abram removed his hat and walked slowly toward them, his weathered boots pressing deliberately into the parched earth. As he approached, his steady presence drew their attention. Without speaking, he knelt and scooped up a handful of soil, letting it filter through his fingers. The men fell silent, unconsciously mirroring his grounded state. When he finally spoke, his voice carried the same gentle authority as falling rain. "This earth," he said, "knows no boundaries between fields. What serves one serves all." He outlined a plan that considered every section's needs while preserving their limited water supply. The solution emerged not from force, but from his balanced connection to both land and people. The essence of true authority lies in this delicate balance between firmness and care. Like a strong tree that provides both shelter and support, genuine leadership combines unwavering presence with nurturing attention. Force creates resistance. Grounded presence invites cooperation. Lucinda Marsh discovered this truth in her artist's studio, where she taught painting to students of varying abilities. One particular class threatened to dissolve into chaos, with experienced painters demanding advanced instruction while beginners struggled with basics. Instead of imposing rigid structure, Lucinda transformed her studio's dynamics through presence. She moved through the space with unhurried confidence, giving each student precisely what they needed, sometimes instruction, sometimes silence, sometimes merely a steady gaze of encouragement. Her authority emerged not from controlling the room, but from embodying both strength and receptivity. Students began to mirror her balanced state, naturally supporting each other's growth while respecting the studio's harmony. The power of relational dominance flows from this unity of steadiness and sensitivity. Like a conductor who both guides and responds to the orchestra, true influence arises from the ability to hold space while remaining attuned to others. The relational attunement ritual begins with 3 deep breaths, grounding yourself in present awareness. Stand with feet shoulder-width apart, imagining roots extending deep into the earth. Raise your arms slowly to shoulder height, palms facing forward. Envision your energy field expanding to fill the room while remaining receptive to the subtle currents of interaction around you. Hold this posture for 2 minutes, practicing the dual awareness of projecting presence while maintaining sensitivity. Lower your arms and carry this balanced state into your encounters. This practice cultivates the precise frequency of relational dominance, neither forcing nor yielding, but standing in the power of grounded presence. Through consistent practice, this state becomes your natural way of being, transforming every interaction through the silent authority of balanced awareness. Chapter 26. Teaching the Signal. Principal Ira Bennett never raised his voice in the crowded halls of Riverside Academy. When teachers complained about students arriving late, he began showing up 15 minutes early, quietly standing by the front entrance. He greeted each arrival with a slight nod, his posture relaxed yet dignified. Within 2 weeks, tardiness dropped by half. When paper littered the courtyard, Ira didn't lecture or assign detention. Instead, he spent 10 minutes each morning picking up trash, his movements deliberate and unhurried. Soon, students began joining him, first a few, then dozens, until the ritual became a natural part of school culture. True influence flows not from words, but from embodied example. Like water shaping stone, consistent demonstration carries more power than any command. When your actions align with your principles, others naturally attune to your frequency. Florence Winters understood this principle in her decades as head librarian. New assistants often struggled with the library's complex classification system, growing frustrated with her minimal instruction. Instead of detailed explanations, Florence simply went about her work with fluid precision, allowing others to absorb her methods through observation. She moved through the stacks with quiet certainty, her fingers trailing along spines as she reshelved books. Her presence carried such clarity that new staff found themselves unconsciously matching her rhythm, their movements becoming more purposeful and precise. As they watched Florence navigate the library's systems, understanding emerged naturally, questions decreased while competence grew. The entire staff began operating with a synchronized efficiency that no manual could have taught. This silent transmission of knowledge represents the highest form of mentorship. Like a master craftsman whose very presence teaches more than words, your state of being becomes the primary vehicle of instruction. The mentorship signal exercise begins with centering yourself in expertise. Stand naturally, allowing your body to settle into its most aligned position. Recall a skill you've mastered completely, letting that confidence fill your physical form. Move through a simple task with full presence, imagining your knowledge radiating outward like heat from a flame. Practice this state for 3 minutes, focusing on embodiment rather than explanation. Your presence becomes the teaching. Chapter 27. The Unshakable Yes. Tobias Fletcher worked as a clerk at the town's hardware store for 15 years, his life marked by routine and quiet resignation. Each morning he would arrange the same displays, count the same inventory, and watch the same hours tick by. But one autumn morning something shifted within him. Standing before his mirror, he made a single, unwavering decision. He would open his own shop. This wasn't a wish or a hope. It was an unshakable commitment that settled into his bones. He didn't quit his job immediately or make grand announcements. Instead, he began setting aside a portion of his wages each week, his resolve as steady as a heartbeat. When others spent their earnings on comfort, Tobias maintained his focus. $1 became 10, became 100, became 1,000. Through winter storms and summer heat, he held that single decision in his mind. It shaped every choice, every action, until his very presence began to change. Customers started asking his advice more frequently. Fellow clerks naturally deferred to his judgment. His commitment had altered his field, and the world responded accordingly. 2 years later, Tobias opened his own hardware store across town. The decision that had started as a quiet morning revelation had reshaped reality through pure, sustained conviction. Commitment is not an emotional state. It's a fundamental frequency that either exists or doesn't. When you truly commit, uncertainty dissolves. Questions about how become irrelevant in the face of will. Consider Miriam Jane, who inherited a failing millinery shop. While others advised her to sell, she made one unwavering decision. The shop would thrive. 3 consecutive floods damaged her inventory. Supply shortages threatened her stock. Yet Miriam's commitment never wavered. She didn't fight circumstances or rail against setbacks. Her commitment simply remained, like bedrock beneath a stormy sea. She adapted her methods, shifted her inventory, and learned new skills, but the core decision stayed immutable. Within 18 months, her shop became the town's most reliable source for quality hats, her success born not from strategy but from unshakable certainty. True commitment transforms your field instantly. even before external circumstances change. It creates a gravitational pull that begins arranging reality around your decision. The commitment anchoring ritual begins with selecting one absolute decision. Stand with your feet shoulder-width apart, eyes closed. Place your right hand over your solar plexus. Breathe deeply and state your commitment 3 times, first in a whisper, then in a normal voice, finally in a tone of complete certainty. Feel the commitment settling into your physical form, becoming part of your cellular structure. Hold this state for 5 minutes, allowing your entire being to align with your decision. Practice this ritual at sunrise and sunset until your commitment becomes your natural state of being. Chapter 28. The Inner Throne. Willis Bradford's bookbinding shop occupied a small corner of Market Street, where he meticulously restored ancient texts to their former glory. For years, he approached his craft as a servant to the books, constantly seeking approval from clients and second-guessing his decisions. But everything changed the day he restored a medieval manuscript on royal sovereignty. As Willis worked with the gilded pages describing the divine right of kings, he realized that true authority came not from external validation, but from an unwavering inner certainty. He began carrying himself differently, making decisions about restoration techniques with quiet confidence rather than anxious deliberation. When customers questioned his methods, he responded not with defensive explanations, but with calm assurance born of expertise. His work transformed. Each book he restored seemed to carry a new dignity, as if touched by the same sovereignty he had discovered within himself. Clients who once haggled over prices now simply nodded in acceptance of his terms. The internal seat of power resides not in what we do, but in how we hold ourselves while doing it. It's a place of quiet knowing that exists independent of external circumstances or others' opinions. This inner throne becomes the foundation from which all authentic authority flows. Marion Blackwood, a schoolteacher in a rural district, discovered this truth during the harshest winter on record. When heavy snows threatened to close the schoolhouse, parents began to panic about their children's education. Instead of being swept up in their fear, Marion accessed her inner seat of power. Standing before the town meeting, she didn't plead or argue. Speaking from her sovereign center, she outlined her plan to continue teaching, even if it meant holding classes in barns or private homes. Her unwavering certainty calmed the room instantly. Parents who had been demanding her resignation now offered their own homes as temporary classrooms. The key was not in Marion's words or plans, but in her unshakable connection to her inner authority. She had found her throne, and from that seat, her influence naturally expanded. The throne visualization ritual begins with creating your inner court. Find a quiet space and sit with your spine straight. Close your eyes and visualize a magnificent throne room within your chest, centered around your heart. See the throne crafted from unshakable material, whether stone, gold, or light itself. Feel its solid presence supporting you. Approach this inner throne with reverence. Before sitting, acknowledge your responsibility to rule your inner kingdom with wisdom and grace. As you take your seat, feel sovereignty filling every cell of your body. Let your breath deepen as you adjust to this position of inner authority. From this throne, survey your inner kingdom, your thoughts, emotions, and choices. Notice how clarity comes naturally from this position. Spend 10 minutes each morning on your inner throne, allowing its power to inform your day. End by placing your hand on your heart, sealing in the energy of sovereignty before opening your eyes. Remember, the throne is not a place of dominance over others, but of dominance over yourself. It's where your truest authority resides, waiting to be claimed. Chapter 29. Living as a Vector. Ellis Warner moved through the bustling streets of Charleston with unwavering focus, telegrams clutched in his weathered hands. Unlike other runners who darted randomly between deliveries, Ellis operated with precise intention. He plotted each route with careful consideration, moving like water, finding its inevitable path to the sea. Other runners questioned his methodical approach, but Ellis understood a fundamental truth. Direction itself carried power. Each morning he would stand at the telegraph office and feel the weight of his messages, allowing their urgency to align with his inner compass. This subtle attunement transformed his work from mere delivery into a force that shaped events. One rain-soaked Tuesday, Ellis carried 3 urgent messages. Instead of rushing frantically, he settled into what he called his direction state, a calm certainty about the optimal flow of his path. As he moved through the city, seemingly random events aligned in his favor. A wagon that would have blocked his route moved aside just as he approached. A client who was normally absent appeared precisely as he arrived. Direction is not merely about physical movement. It is an energetic force that either disperses or concentrates our life's momentum. When we align our actions with clear internal direction, reality itself seems to bend toward our intent. Helena Mills discovered this principle while managing her small dressmaking shop. For years, she had accepted every type of commission that came her way, spreading her energy in countless directions. Her work was good, but her business barely sustained itself. Everything shifted when she focused exclusively on wedding gowns. This wasn't just a business decision, it was an energetic realignment. She cleared her workroom of all other projects and devoted herself entirely to bridal wear. Within months, her reputation for wedding gowns spread throughout the county. The power wasn't in the specialization itself, but in the clarity of direction it represented. Helena's focused energy became magnetic, drawing exactly the right clients and opportunities toward her. Even her sketches gained a new vitality, as if her singular direction had intensified her creative force. To harness this principle, begin with the vector alignment ritual. Find a quiet space and stand with your feet shoulder-width apart. Close your eyes and feel the various pulls on your energy. Obligations, desires, fears, and aspirations. Notice how they often point in competing directions. Now, imagine a powerful beam of light extending from your solar plexus, pointing toward your highest priority. Let this beam grow stronger, absorbing the scattered energies of lesser concerns. Feel your whole being gradually aligning with this singular direction. Take 3 deep breaths, allowing each exhale to strengthen your alignment. Open your eyes and notice how this focused state affects your perception. Practice this alignment each morning, letting it shape your day's trajectory. Your direction becomes your destiny, not through force, but through the quiet power of sustained focus. Chapter 30. The Public Work. James Foster stood at the edge of Millbrook's Main Street, observing the town's failing infrastructure with the practiced eye of a civil engineer. While others saw only crumbling buildings and potholed roads, Foster perceived the subtle connections between physical structures and human vitality. He understood that a town's architecture shaped its residents' daily rhythms and social interactions. Instead of pushing immediate reforms, Foster spent 3 months quietly walking the streets, studying traffic patterns and listening to shopkeepers' concerns. He noted how certain intersections created tension among pedestrians, while others fostered natural gathering spaces. When he finally presented his improvement plans to the town council, his proposals emerged from deep understanding rather than mere technical expertise. What distinguished Foster's approach was his recognition that true leadership serves rather than controls. Each modification he suggested, from widening specific sidewalks to adding benches in key locations, aimed to enhance the natural flow of community life. As changes were implemented, residents noticed a shift in the town's atmosphere. People lingered longer in public spaces, conversations flowed more easily, and a sense of civic pride emerged organically. This principle of calibrated service extends far beyond engineering. It reveals that mastery finds its highest expression not in dominance, but in contribution to collective well-being. When we align our skills with genuine service, our influence expands naturally through the web of human connection. Nurse Evelyn Parker demonstrated this truth in the crowded wards of City Hospital. While other nurses rushed through their rounds, focused solely on medical tasks, Evelyn understood that healing required more than technical care. She began incorporating small moments of genuine connection into her routine. A gentle touch here, an attentive pause there. These subtle adjustments transformed her ward's atmosphere. Patients began recovering more quickly, and other staff members unconsciously adopted her thoughtful approach. Evelyn never sought to reform hospital procedures directly. Instead, her compassionate presence created ripples that gradually altered the institution's culture. The public work ritual solidifies this understanding. Begin by standing in a public space, a park, street corner, or building entrance. Close your eyes and extend your awareness outward, feeling the pulse of collective activity around you. Notice the currents of human movement and interaction. Now imagine your skill or contribution as a clear stream flowing into this larger river of community life. Don't force the flow or try to redirect the main current. Instead, feel how your offering can enhance and support the natural patterns already present. Let your breath synchronize with the rhythm of public life around you. This practice reveals that true influence doesn't arise from imposing our will, but from skillfully contributing to the greater whole. As you open your eyes, carry this awareness into your work. Let each action arise from this deeper understanding of service as leadership. Conclusion. The deepest truth about field sovereignty emerges not through force but through devotion to practice. Like a pianist who no longer thinks about individual notes or a master craftsman who works without conscious thought, your command becomes effortless through consistent refinement. Consider how a well-tuned instrument naturally resonates at its perfect frequency. Through daily practice of the principles in this book, from the room test to the public work ritual, your presence achieves this same natural resonance. The rigid scaffolding of technique falls away, revealing the pure tone of authentic sovereignty. What began as conscious effort, maintaining aligned posture, calibrating breath, directing attention, transforms into your default state of being. You no longer need to remember to ground your energy before entering a room. Your field naturally maintains its coherent frequency. You don't have to remind yourself to speak with measured authority. Your voice naturally carries the weight of certainty. This is the profound shift from doing to being. The practices that once required deliberate focus now flow through you as naturally as breathing. Your presence becomes an organizing force in any environment, not because you're trying to influence others, but because you've cultivated an unshakable internal alignment that naturally orders the space around you. Rooms respond to your entrance without effort. Conversations find their proper rhythm through your natural pacing. Relationships clarify and strengthen through your unwavering field. These effects emerge not from technique, but from the refined quality of your being. This is why the ancient practices emphasized repetition and patience. Each time you engage in the rituals, whether practicing silent presence, calibrating your field, or serving the collective good, you're not just performing exercises, you're sculpting your fundamental nature, tuning your instrument to its purest resonance. The certainty you now embody isn't something you achieve or maintain. It's simply what you are, as natural as your heartbeat, as effortless as your breath. Your field has become sovereign not through force of will, but through devoted practice that has revealed your true nature. Moving forward, continue your daily practices not as someone trying to gain influence, but as one who recognizes their innate authority. Let each ritual be a remembrance rather than an effort. Your presence now naturally exerts its quiet command, bringing clarity and alignment wherever you go. This is the final teaching, that true sovereignty emerges when all technique dissolves into natural being. Your field now resonates with an unwavering certainty that needs no maintenance, only recognition and expression through devoted practice.
If you enjoyed this exclusive audiobook, I handpicked this next book which will change your life.